Welcome to Needham School Spotlight. I'm Dan Goodykanst, Superintendent of Schools. Well, we've kicked off a new and actually a pretty extraordinary school year. And joining me today to talk about it, Andrea Longo-Carter, our school committee chair. Welcome, Andrea. Thank you. Tim McDonald, the town's director of Health and Human Services, and Karen Bourne, principal of the John Elliott Elementary School. Thank you for being here. And we're maintaining in our studio here at the high school physical distancing. And for the purposes of our interview, we are taking off our masks. However, the crew has their masks on, and we will put them on promptly right after our interview. Well, thank you. I said, Tim, this is an extraordinary new year for us, and I'm going to turn to you first because the reason it's an extraordinary year is that we have started school in the midst of an international pandemic. I'm wondering if you could share with us what's the big picture regarding the health in the community, and what's on your mind? What's keeping you up at night a little bit these days?
Sure, I'm glad to be here. So unfortunately this weekend the U.S. passed its highest daily case count ever, which was over 80,000. Massachusetts has once again gone over 1,000 cases over the weekend. Both days it had more than 1,000 cases. So that's an upward slope from where we had been. I think most people know that there was obviously a very intense wave in the spring in Massachusetts, and there was a dip in cases as the effect of the lockdown manifested. But as the weather turns colder, as more people are indoors, unfortunately, both in Massachusetts and nationwide, case numbers have gone up. Massachusetts numbers are not nearly as concerning as some other parts of the country, but it is a cause for concern. Here in Needham, we've been fortunate that we have been in the low or moderate risk category for the last 2 months, 2.5 months. But Needham has seen a small uptick in cases, and that's certainly a cause for concern. I think it's not something that people should panic about. It's something people should be aware of and should try to take specific actions to try to limit the risk to themselves and to their family members. I think everyone's heard those sort of small steps they can take: increasing your physical distance, having a mask on, making sure to wash your hands. I think Needham schools really emphasize the 4 W's.
Right. We have the 4 W's of wear a mask, wash your hands, watch your distance, and wait for test results.
Excellent.
Because we don't want anyone coming in if they're awaiting test results. Wait until you get those. And in any event, if you have a question, you can call the school nurse. I think that's what we've been telling folks. Well, Tim, I think it's also important for me to point out that you have really been a key figure in all of our planning over the last 6-7 months. Because this is a health emergency, we've had to lean on you, our health services director, Barbara Singer, our school physician, Alan Stern, and Tiffany Zeit, your entire team. Really a lot of folks to help us plan through and work through this, having school during this health emergency. Andrea, as the school committee chair and as the school committee has over the last 6-7 months been involved in watching and responding to families, what's top of mind for you? What is the school committee concerned about, thinking about, and as we begin this new school year?
Well, I think it was clear throughout the spring and during the summer that we really wanted to do whatever it took in a safe way to get kids back in the building. We know how important that is for our students and how much better it is from a whole child perspective, both in terms of their academic learning, but also their social emotional health and well-being. And so that was really something that we wanted to see. Can we get kids back in the school safely? And I'm pleased that we've been able to do that so far. And I think now, as we have had a few weeks of the hybrid model under our belt, we've had both cohorts come through. Now it's looking at, okay, what's working, what needs, some tweaks here and there. But then also really, as Tim said, the numbers are going up. We want to do everything we possibly can to keep kids in school. And so that, I think, has to be everybody's focus. We want, now that the kids are here, let's keep them here as long as we possibly can. And if we need to make some modifications to our planning and our programs to improve for everybody, let's try and see what those might be.
Yeah, and I would want that to be our focus. How can we improve what we have rather than exerting a lot of energy over just keeping the kids in school and trying to manage all of the out-of-school activities? Because I think, well, I'm hearing some initial data that's coming out, Tim, saying that schools don't seem to be the place where there are a lot of super spreading events, but it's all of the folks coming to school who might be involved in a lot of activities that are causing some schools either to shut down um, uh, locally or not even open at all in the first place.
Yeah, we don't have any evidence here in Needham, and the Public Health Division, which works under me, does contact tracing. We have a number of very talented public health nurses that work very well with Barbara Singer and her team of school nurses. We don't have any evidence of transmission in the schools. We do have, as you said, individuals, in some cases teachers, in some cases students, who have gotten infected through another activity, an extracurricular activity or a family activity. And in some cases that has meant that they and a number of their participants in those activities, which often are their friends or school-age kids on a sports team, have also had to quarantine. I think it highlights for us maybe the number of activities that people are doing. In the spring, one of the reasons that the case numbers in Massachusetts, which started out pretty darn high, I know people focused on New York, but Massachusetts was, at some points, the second or third hardest hit state in the country for quite a long time, and had very significant fatality numbers, unfortunately. One of the things that helped in Massachusetts was when a lockdown went into place and when a number of businesses were closed and when a mask mandate was put into effect, the number of cases dropped dramatically and the number of interactions that people could have really dropped. So you, in April or May, you didn't have a chance to sort of be close to 10, 20, 30 people. You could probably only be close to your family, maybe one or two coworkers, and hopefully you were doing that safely. As the economy has opened back up, as a number of businesses have resumed, as activities have resumed, people are exposed to a lot other people. And so our concern is just that people understand that when they do every additional activity, no matter how careful they are about distancing and mask wearing and washing their hands, there's a little bit of risk that's added. Yeah. So I think from a public health perspective, we want people to really understand and prioritize what's critically important for themselves and their family. In many cases, I think that is attending school.
Well, that I hope really should be the focus for our families. And I know, Andrew, you've spoken about that we really have to focus on being in school, and the other things really are going to have to wait. The big trips, all of the social engagements. We might talk about that in a moment. In the meantime, though, Karen, the kids are back in school. They're back at Elliott. Mm-hmm. So tell us what that's been like.
It's been really great to have the kids in the building again. We prepared for months to do everything we could to bring all the kids back safely. Thank you, working with the school committee and working with you, Tim. And I'd have to say we had a pretty successful beginning of school year. We are noticing that the kids are incredibly happy to be in school. And we're actually not having any problems with kids wearing masks and doing the 4 Ws that you talked about.
Yeah, we've been really fortunate so far. Our students, I think, have been really, really good about being excited about being back. I've seen that in all the schools, mm-hmm. and really compliant with the wearing the masks. Now, keeping those masks on when they do some activities, going to lunch or going to the town common, that is a challenge that we have to work on for sure. But so far in schools, and I think in many ways schools, I think because of the way that the town has worked with us with both ventilation and maintenance and school committee passing a policy on masks, I think the schools in some ways are the safest places to be. It'd be great to get all of our students back at the same time, and that certainly is our goal. But right now we have a hybrid model for most of our students, half in for a week and then the other half they're at home.
Correct. Yeah.
So what does that look like practically speaking at Elliott? What do the class sizes look like during today, for example, this week, and how does lunch work? And
sure. So at Elliott, our class sizes are between 8 and 14 students, and that achieves 6 feet of physical distancing between the kids. And so we're really fortunate that Elliott is a new building. We actually have pretty large classrooms, so we are able to accommodate up to 14 students. Teachers have been able to figure that out and been able to work with that really well. The other challenge that we had that we were able to overcome was lunch. So currently at Elliott, students are 8 feet away from each other at lunch. We utilize a lunch tent, so we have one we currently have 3 sections per grade. So one of the sections will eat lunch outside in the fresh air under the tent, and we have 2 classes inside. So that's actually worked very, very well. That's a chance for kids to take off their masks, and they can socialize with kids that are 8 feet away, or they figure out a way to socialize with kids that are 8 feet away.
Sure.
But the other things that we've utilized are mask breaks. So sometimes instruction is actually happening outside in the fresh air. Kids will bring, at Elliott, kids have a towel that they bring to school with them. They'll go outside, they'll sit down on the grass, the teacher will do a read aloud outside, or they'll do their independent reading or their independent writing outside. So we're able to do some instruction outside while at the same time providing kids a chance to take a break from being indoors with a mask, and that's worked really well.
So go back to that lunch for a second.
Sure.
One group is having lunch in a tent. At some point this winter, those tents are going to
Yes.
go away because
They
they're
are.
not built for bad weather.
Correct.
So what's the plan?
So we have a plan B, and we've already had to utilize it because when it rains, we still don't want kids outside. So we have kids in the cafeteria, and we're able to accommodate 2 kids to a table across from each other at over 6 feet away from each other.
Okay.
The other part of lunch that's different this year is kids pre-order their lunches before they get to the cafeteria, and our lunch staff individually wraps hundreds of lunches every morning so that when those kids go through the lunch line, it's ready for them to go, and they don't have to worry about just getting their lunches, so they can go through really quickly.
Yeah, it's a pretty amazing organization, Nutrition Services, right now. It's a bit of a military operation with getting all those meals out to hungry kids. They've been doing a nice job. Karen, why don't you share with us, it is great, as you said, to have our students back, even if it is part-time. Why don't you share with us some of the challenges, that you're hearing from families for remote learners, perhaps? So half of the students are in school during the week and interact with their teacher as they typically would, mask wearing and physical distancing and all that, going one way down the hallway and all that, following the arrows. The other half are at home.
Correct.
Which is clearly, and I think particularly at the elementary level, a challenge for our youngest students. Talk to us about what you've heard and what you've experienced.
So what this requires is for our youngest kids to be more independent learners than they have in the past. I would say the challenges that we've had, and I think it's a challenge that all school districts have had, is just access to technology. So Needham, like neighboring school districts, purchased devices for all of our students. So we currently have at least half of our students with the devices. So I would say making sure that kids feel comfortable with the devices, and to be honest, kids actually learn how to use the devices sometimes faster than the grown-ups. So that's worked out really well. And so I would say that challenges are making sure that links work, that kids are where they need to be on time to be able to hear the teacher's directions. So all of our teachers have a live Zoom meeting with our students in the morning to explain the day. So they'll do what we call a launching learning session, where they will go over what their assignments are for the day, how to get to the links, answer any questions that they have so that they can go off and finish some of the activities on their own, which has been helpful.
So it's helpful, and I understand that, and I'm that our teachers are focusing on one group at home and one in the classroom is a challenge. How, though, do our kindergartners and first graders, how are they doing with the remote week? I mean, it's one thing to say you're going to be an independent learner.
Correct.
It's another thing to say that. It's okay to say that to a 5th or 6th grader. How do we say that to kindergartners, and what is that looking like?
So what that looks like is on the week that they're in school in person, the teacher is spending a lot of time providing them with everything that they need to be independent learners on their week off. So, for example, a program that we adopted last year that's been incredibly helpful prior to all of this happening is ST Math, which is an online program that actually doesn't have any language involved. And so the teachers, during the weeks that they're in school, will show the kids how to use that program effectively and independently, so that when they're home, there isn't a lot of need for their parents to assist them with a program like that. So that's the way that we're trying to help the little ones make sure that they can access learning from home.
Although I would imagine, and I think we all acknowledge this, we would like to have more time with the littlest ones,
Absolutely.
more direct time with teachers and the adults who care for them. Um, would clearly be beneficial. It's not where we are right now.
It's not.
I think it's an area that we need to look at and work on.
Mhm.
And I think, Andrea, we've been getting some feedback from the community in that regard, that kindergartners, first graders, even second graders, that, what else is there for us at the elementary level? I think at the middle school and high school, folks are navigating their way through, unlike in the spring when it was different. But what are you hearing as a school? What's the school committee hearing about our elementary hybrid program?
I think it's exactly what you said, Dan, and some of the things that Karen alluded to. I think it's particularly hard for our youngest learners to be independent for the bulk of the school day, and navigating the technology, being able to independently complete the work has been a challenge, I think, and that's what we've really heard from parents. I think if parents could wave their magic wand, they would have the kids be in school more. I think absent that, they would like more interaction, direct interaction with their child's classroom teacher throughout the day to be able to answer questions on assignments or provide direct instruction.
I think it's an area that we have to consider. And
Yes, I think, and I just wanted to point out, so the way that the hybrid model is structured is that our teachers are responsible for the students that are physically in front of them, while also being responsible for the kids that are at home learning remotely. And so the challenges that we are going to need to overcome is how to provide a structure so that can happen. So right now our teachers are using their lunch periods, their planning periods, any free time that they have to be able to check in with families at home to make sure that they're moving along in the curriculum. So I know that's been a challenge. I've spoken to a few families about that, and they've been incredibly understanding that it is not, it's in many ways teachers are having to plan for two completely different sets of lessons and students, and that can be tricky.
yeah. One of the things, Andrea and Karen, maybe you've heard this, is that, well, we had some teachers come to school committee recently, and they were quite eloquent, and they talked about the challenges, needing more time to prepare. And they also talked about one of their concerns, at least two of the teachers, about inequities that can exist, likely do exist, that they're experiencing, inequities between those students who are at home learning pretty much by themselves or with minimal adult interaction, and those who are supported with learning pods, those neighbors that have gotten together, or additional tutors, or a nanny. I mean, that is a concern. I know this business of inequity for the school committee.
It's a huge concern for us. I think, if you think about just comparing a household where there's one parent or guardian at home versus two parents or guardians at home, and then you add in families who have purchased additional support in the name, tutors, retired teachers, learning pods. I mean, the inequity grows exponentially, and I think our focus has been on directing resources to our most needy and our most vulnerable students, and making sure that those students have what they need to be successful. We're not in a position to be able to provide full day instruction for all the kids at school, in the building and at home, for every student. We just don't have those kinds of resources, but making sure that we're directing the resources towards our most vulnerable students and families, I think, is key for the school committee.
Karen, you mentioned this, that it is incredibly tricky, difficult for our elementary teachers, middle school and high school teachers who really have reinvented themselves during this process. I think some principals have reinvented themselves too. Can you talk a little bit about Wednesday? So the way our schedule is set up is that students are in person Monday and Tuesday and Thursday and Friday,
Yes.
while there are students who are home. There's the blue cohort and the gold cohort. And then on Wednesdays, all children and many staff, but not all, are home, teaching or learning remotely. What does Wednesday look like for an elementary student, for example?
Sure. So an elementary student will engage in a launching learning lesson with both cohorts. So it's really the only time where they get to, if you're a blue student, you get to see a gold student. So they're
Of course,
together.
it's on Zoom, on
It's
the
on.
learning
It's all over
platform.
Zoom.
Yep,
Yes,
yep.
it's all over Zoom. So there is a meeting, and that's usually a chance for a teacher to do a community building activity so that the kids get to know each other. And I participated in a Zoom meeting with a third grade classroom last week, and it was just amazing, the amount of energy, and the kids are happy to see each other even over Zoom. Later on in the morning, prior to 12 o'clock, there is another lesson that the teacher does with her students. So the teacher might choose to do a small group lesson with a group of students, or another whole group lesson. Maybe that's a chance to do a whole group social studies lesson. Maybe that's a chance to do 3 different guided reading groups or 3 different groups at a time. But students do get 2 interactions a day on Wednesday mornings. On Wednesday afternoons, and then the teacher is also providing activities for the student to be able to continue with their independent learning for the rest of the day. So from 12 to 3, to say.
And so what are teachers doing during that time? I get questions from families saying
Yes.
that, why not have our teachers interact with kids the whole day? What are they doing?
So the afternoon serves several purposes. So the teachers have their collaboration time. So at Elliott, a group of grade level teachers will meet, and we will have the coaches. So we might have a literacy focus, or a math coach would come and have a math focus, and they engage in professional development in that Wednesday afternoon. That's also a time when they do their special education consults. So we created a schedule so that they're split. So for part of that time, they meet with their grade level team. They plan their instruction for the next week, because they're planning for several different cohorts, and looking at what's in the curriculum that's professional development. And then after that, they get into their collaboration time, special education consults. So it's a very, very busy time. I've engaged in these meetings with the teachers, and I can tell you that it's probably it's the heaviest day, actually, for a lot of teachers.
Well, and I know that one of the things we did in the schedule is that teachers typically have had planning or collaboration time on Monday,
Correct.
Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. We squeezed that out
On
so there could be
Wednesday.
more live instruction, and we placed it in on Wednesday.
Correct.
So, well, that is a lot, and I want to just check in quickly, Andrea, as we get into this year, like anything in Needham, school committee and the community will expect that we refine, refresh, review what we've done. We intend to do that with the work that we're doing pre-K through 12. And what I think the community can expect is more discussions with the school committee, about our models and how they're doing. I know that I expect that we will be doing some surveying soon of teachers, families, and students to gather some data to say, okay, where might we target some improvements as may be necessary, and share that with the school committee. I would imagine that would be something the school committee would want to happen for the community.
Absolutely. I think we really want to assess, where are we with the hybrid model? What's working, what isn't working, and what are areas where we really do feel like we need to pay some additional attention, to make some tweaks, to make some improvements, so that it can be as successful as we can make it.
Tim, I just you said something just a little bit ago that in order for all this to be successful, we need the partnership of our families and business owners and community members to kind of band together to really help our students be ready for school. And I'm just wondering, what's some of the key advice that you might have for families? What are some of the aside from the 4 W's, and I'll repeat those before we finish, but what have you seen, or what would you say, this might be something you want to avoid during this time or reconsider?
So I think as we think about the holidays coming up, we have Halloween certainly coming up in just a week. We have Thanksgiving. People need to really think about what they can do safely with their family. So if you're talking about Halloween and you have young children, it absolutely makes sense to trick or treat, but to do it within your family group. to not have a sort of large cohort of dozens of kids from the neighborhood. And that's challenging because it goes against what we sort of typically think of as the normal tradition, but it's the safe way to do it this year. And I think what we're hoping is that people can sort of put that lens on, like, for every kind of consideration, for every type of activity. Can I do this safely? If so, how do I do it? And to really think about when they have so many activities, they're not really prioritizing, and we want them to prioritize what are the really important things for themselves and their families. And I think, Karen has referenced it, Andrew's referenced it. A lot of work has gone on with school staff, town staff, to make sure that the schools can be open safely. And I think we want to make sure that people understand when they take these additional risks, there's a chance that it could jeopardize the ability of school to stay open, and that's something that no one wants to see.
Well, and if too many take those risks and end up getting sick, and I'm hoping no one has a lot of symptoms and gets really ill, but even just to have the disease and it might spread to others, if there are too many, then we will have to shut down a school or schools. And here we're talking about expanding the opportunity for children, but if we get into this winter and too many students are congregating, families are making different decisions, it could serve to have us close schools, the exact opposite of what we want. I will say, as we're finishing here, that one thing that I will really urge families to think about, and you're saying this, Tim, I'm going to be a little bit more direct. For those families and students who are on travel teams for athletics, whether that be hockey or AAU basketball or soccer or lacrosse, whatever it is, you have to limit your activities. You're going to have to. You're going to have to make some choices now if you want to remain in school. And that means not participating in all those travel teams that go out of state to Rhode Island. By the way, if you go out of state to Rhode Island right now, you have to quarantine when you come back, or going out of state to Maine or New Hampshire. I want our students to be involved in healthy exercise and activities, and we all do. We want them to socialize. Right now, we're at a point where we have to limit what they're doing, which is what you're saying. Still allow it to happen, but limit it and limit the risks. Otherwise, with people going out and about as if it were normal, we will ultimately have to shut down schools, and we don't want to do that. I want to encourage families to go to our website, where we do have lots of information, including our COVID dashboard that suggests and shows updated information on cases. And I think with great thanks to Andrea for your leadership on the school committee, Tim for helping us get to this point where we could be in school, and for Karen representing all your colleagues who spent a thankless summer with no vacation time. I don't think there was any vacation time for any of you, actually, to get us to open schools. It was pretty extraordinary watching the work and your leadership. I'll end by encouraging the community to remember the 4 W's, and that is to make sure you wear a mask, wash your hands, watch your distance, and wait for test results if you have your home awaiting. Stay there until you get the results. And at any point in time, call the school nurse if you have a question, and we'll be happy to help answer. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.